Hey everyone, I'm Allison Marsh. You're watching NBC News Now. Here's what's happening.
We have now created over 2 million jobs in total since I took office. More jobs than ever been created in the first 4 months of any presidency in modern history.
President projecting confidence after the May jobs report comes in solid, but still short of expectations. Why he says America is on the move again. Facebook extending its suspension on former President Trump when he'll be allowed back on the book and Instagram. And let the farewell tour begin. Coach K hoping for one more shining moment before saying goodbye to college basketball. More on his big plans for his last year in the NCAA.
I'm not thinking yet of retirement. I'm thinking of next year, and then I'll let my wife plan the retirement during the next 8 or 9 months.
We start today with NBC News White House correspondent Monica Alba. Monica, the president saying the U.S. has created more jobs since he took office than in the first 4 months of any presidency in modern history. But we got to be honest here, right? We had a lot of job losses to make up for. What else is he saying about the May jobs report and our economy?
Yeah, this is absolutely incremental progress, and that's how the president framed it, Allison. Yeah. He's saying that we still have a long, long way to go, but that he is encouraged by what he saw. We all remember a month ago that very disappointing April jobs report where it was a far lower number than what was expected. So this is closer to what the economists had predicted. So the White House was happy about that. But we did see a bit of a shift in tone here on these federal enhanced unemployment benefits, something that we know is set to expire in a couple of months from now. But some states are already going to do away with those in the coming weeks. But the White House won't say whether they've seen the data from the May report that indicates that that's maybe contributing still to some of the more sluggish arenas. They're still studying that, but they didn't want to come out and say that specifically. But the president also here is really linking this to the fight against COVID and what they feel and view as really a successful vaccination program that they believe is a contributing sign to things getting better this summer. Take a listen to how the president framed it when he was in Rehoboth Beach earlier today.
Unemployment filings are down. Hunger is down. And vaccinations are up. Jobs are up. Wages are up. Manufacturing is up. Growth is up. People gaining health care coverage is up. And small business confidence is up. America is finally on the move again.
So another big point that the president made during his speech there is that what this captures doesn't actually include what we saw in the middle of May, which is that major announcement from the CDC that most Americans, if they were fully vaccinated, could shed their face masks. So the president is predicting that the next jobs report will be even stronger because it will reflect this collective optimism from the country as we did start to enter this new phase heading toward Memorial Day and beyond, Allison.
Let's hope so. It needs to be if we're going to get things back on track. All right, Monica, let's talk infrastructure. These talks are reaching a make or break point. The president meeting with Republican Senator, or I should say talking with, because I know this one's on the phone, Republican Senator Shelley Moore Capito again today after he lowered his price tag on the plan. What do you know about the latest round of talks?
We do know the president made those concessions on Wednesday in person. They spoke by phone this afternoon. We know that that discussion has wrapped up because Senator Capito put out her own readout of the call. It was very short, just a couple of sentences saying that the talks are going to continue and that they're going to connect again on Monday. So, Allison, we've been talking about this and Lucy and the football and the moving and the deadlines and the shifting. That's what we're seeing here. This is just going to stretch on for a little bit longer. And the White House claims that they still have a good amount of runway left to make decisions about whether they want to keep the bipartisan talks going, perhaps meet with another group of Republican senators who say they may have their own proposal, or go it alone with Democrats. So the president sort of saying he doesn't want to make that decision in the short term. He is going to give it another couple weeks, even though the two sides still are miles and miles of bumpy road apart on their proposals, Allison.
Monica, Facebook today saying it's extending its suspension of former President Trump's accounts for 2 years. What are we hearing from Trump on this one?
Well, perhaps completely unsurprisingly, the president issuing a statement through email because he actually this week got rid of his blog where it was basically just these statements that would be posted on a website, saying that he is extremely upset by this, saying, quote, they shouldn't be allowed to get away with this censoring and silencing and ultimately predicting we will win. Of course, it comes during a week where the president has been talking about things that are absolutely not going to happen, like wanting to see himself reinstated. But Donald Trump is really talking to aides about something. This has frustrated him for years. He's been at war with big tech, and the former president then issued a subsequent statement saying, again, without any merit, predicting somehow he was going to end up back in the White House. Of course, we don't know if he's going to run again in 2024, which could be a potential option, but that if and when he was ever back in the Oval Office, he would not be having dinners with Mark Zuckerberg. So another emphasis to this. This is something, of course, it's going to extend for 2 years at least, which would mean that the former president will not be able to weigh in on this platform until after the 2022 midterms. And Facebook said that was part of their decision making because of fears of all of the misinformation that could happen around the next election before we get to the next presidential cycle. Allison.
All right, Monica Abel, the latest from this White House and the former administration. Thank you so very much.
Thanks.
All right, let's head over to NBC News correspondent Leanne Caldwell, who isn't all that far away. She's over on Capitol Hill. Leanne, what are Republican lawmakers saying tonight about the president's latest offer on infrastructure and his talks with Senator Capito?
Well, not much, Allison. As Monica just said, that meeting wrapped up a little bit ago. Senator Capito put out a very short statement, really giving no details of the meeting except for the obvious that they talked about infrastructure. Also saying that they were going to connect again on Monday. We do know, if we take a step back, though, over what happened over the past couple days, is President Biden offered some other proposals on how to pay for it, a menu of different taxes other than raising the corporate tax from 21% to 28%, something that Republicans were adamantly against. Well, apparently that was discussed in the meeting tonight, but the phone conversation, I should say, this afternoon. But there is no definitive answers yet, as far as we can tell. These talks are going to continue. But Allison, my sources are saying that Republicans are very pessimistic that there could be some sort of deal. They don't want to be the one to pull out of these meetings, these negotiations first. So we're going to see these drag on for a little bit more, and we don't know how long. We don't know if they'll come to any sort of fruition, but that's kind of the wait and see period that we're in right now.
Mm-hmm. Leanne, I know Democrats in the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee are putting out a separate bill today. What is in that? And could you explain to our viewers why they're working around the president here?
Yeah, it's kind of confusing, and this process is confusing for everyone. So let me just try to break it down a little bit. So while these bipartisan negotiations, or talks, I should say, are happening on this big, massive infrastructure bill, House Democrats are moving forward on a surface transportation bill. That is highways, roads, bridges, electric vehicles, rail transportation, mass transit, even bike lanes. That's $547 billion, a bill that they unveiled today. And these House Democrats are going to move forward and push this legislation through, and they say that it could be the core of a much bigger infrastructure bill. So while these negotiations are happening, Democrats are moving forward on one piece of this infrastructure plan. Where it goes from here is very unclear, but they're not waiting for these talks to break down in order to actually do the legislating. They are starting the process now, Allison.
Leanne, the House Judiciary Committee finally questioning former White House counsel Don McGahn today. They've been trying to talk to him for 2 years about the Russia investigation. I know this is a closed door hearing, but is anything trickling out?
Not a lot, really. The top Democrat on the committee, Jerry Nadler, is saying that first he said that Don McGahn was cooperating, and then about an hour later he said he is being difficult. So we're not sure which one it actually is. Jerry Nadler said we'll have to read the transcripts to be able to understand what he's saying. Those transcripts aren't going to come out for probably another 7 days or so, but just want to take a step back of why this is actually happening now, because Don McGahn was defying subpoenas during the whole Trump administration to come testify before the committee. There was an agreement with the Biden Justice Department and congressional Democrats got him before the committee. Democrats know that there's probably not going to be much coming of this except to put his testimony into the public record, but they also say that it had to validate the oversight role of Congress, and so that is why this is happening. We should not expect some major revelations coming from it, but it is Congress doing its job. Allison.
All right. Still looking forward to that readout, though, which I know you say is coming in about 7 days. So we'll anxiously await that, Leanne, even if it doesn't have too much information. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Democrats won't be able to pass infrastructure on their own. West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin making it clear that he will not help advance President Biden's agenda without any Republican votes. Here's NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Garrett Hake's exclusive interview with the senator.
Hey, Allison. West Virginia Senator Shelley Moore Capito says she will speak with President Biden again on Monday as the two continue their negotiations on coming up with a bipartisan infrastructure package. That's a good thing for folks who want to see this get done, because it looks like a Democrat-only reconciliation option isn't really an option at all. That's what Joe Manchin told me last night when we spoke about his willingness for Democrats to strike out alone on infrastructure if this bipartisan negotiation falls apart. Here's what he told me. Are you ready to go it alone with just Democrats if they're not?
I don't think you should. I really don't. I'm not.
At all? At any point?
I don't think right now, basically, we need to be bipartisan. If we can't become, I've always said this, I've never seen a pothole that had a Republican and Democrat name on it. Mm-hmm. It'll bust your tire. I don't care who you are.
Progressives may hold out hope that Manchin's right now means that he may change his tune later on, but he's been pretty consistent for the last 6 months that he wants to see essentially everything that the Senate does get done in a bipartisan way. That includes a voting rights package, which right now he does not support. He's floated some other alternatives that he hopes might get bipartisan support, but Democrats are not particularly optimistic that he's right. And to the particular frustration of progressives, Manchin continues to say there is no way he would support getting rid of the filibuster, that 60-vote threshold for passing most legislation. He has said that he doesn't want to break the government. He has warned that what goes around comes around, and the Democrats could end up regretting getting rid of the filibuster if and when Republicans are back in charge. Manchin says that the Senate is working better now than at any other time in the 10 years he has been here. That's a low bar for many folks, but it may have to be good enough, because in a 50-50 Senate, he remains the indispensable man, the one moderate Democrat really willing to throw his weight around. And by the way, the president still backs him up on the filibuster. So all of this comes back to Shelley Moore Capito, that other senator here from West Virginia, and her negotiations with the president, once again, closely watched going into another week. Allison?
Time to check in with NBC News Now correspondent Simone Boyce. She has the Friday edition of the headlines for us from NBCnews.com. Simone, I thought this edition would never come.
Allison, Friday edition coming at you right now with this. Facebook announcing former President Donald Trump's account will be suspended for 2 years. That means he won't be able to use Facebook platforms during the midterm elections. The social media platform says it will, quote, assess whether the risk to public safety has receded in 2023. Now, Facebook temporarily suspended Trump's accounts following the Capitol Hill riots in January. And in North Carolina County is banning Coca-Cola machines from all government facilities. Now, the move comes after the company's CEO called Georgia's controversial new voting law, quote, unacceptable and a step backward. In a letter to the CEO, a Surrey County official says Coca-Cola supports, quote, the out-of-control cancel culture and bigoted leftist mob. A spokesperson for Coca-Cola says the company hopes to have, quote, productive conversations with officials there moving forward. and Russian President Vladimir Putin telling the government there to prepare to give foreigners COVID vaccinations for a fee. Now, it's unclear how much these vaccinations will actually cost non-Russian citizens, but Russia has 4 approved COVID vaccines. The most widely used one is the 2-dose Sputnik vaccine, which costs about $10 a shot. And filming of the latest Mission Impossible movie in Britain has been shut down for 2 weeks after some people on set tested positive for COVID-19. Paramount Pictures didn't say who or how many people were infected, but Britain's Sun newspaper said star Tom Cruise was not among them. He will, however, have to self-isolate for 14 days, just like everybody else on the set there. And new research shows man's best friend might be born with an innate ability to understand humans. That's according to the journal Current Biology. The study showed that at just 8 weeks old, some puppies were willing to follow command cues from people they had never met. Experts say a dog's genetics could influence their ability to do this without any training. On that note, Allison, I saw a viral video the other day that was absolutely fascinating. It was this app that has buttons on it, and the buttons are attached to words. They're connected to words, and the puppy could actually step on the buttons and communicate to their owner with words at the intelligence level of like a toddler. It was mind-blowing.
Oh, I need to check this out. Also, I got to see how this would work with my dog. You met my dog, Roosevelt. You were at our house the first week we got him. I promise you he's more advanced since then, but sometimes it really just does feel like they understand us.
Yes.
Thanks, Simone. Conservatives questioning Dr. Fauci over emails he sent at the start of the pandemic. So what's in those emails and how's the White House reacting? Here's NBC News senior Washington correspondent Hallie Jackson.
Hey there, Allison. The nation's top infectious diseases doctor now facing fire from some Republicans and defending his emails newly released from more than a year ago. Fauci saying these messages are ripe for being taken out of context as they give a glimpse into what it was like for him when the pandemic was just beginning. Defending the doctor, the White House asked about newly revealed emails sent by Anthony Fauci in the early days of the pandemic, some referencing theories about the origins of COVID-19.
The president and the administration feel that Dr. Fauci has played an incredible role in getting the pandemic under control. A lot of these emails are from 17 months ago or more.
That's after several news organizations obtained thousands of pages of Fauci's emails under the Freedom of Information Act from the first months of 2020, including one sent by Dr. Francis Collins, the head of the NIH. Its subject line, conspiracy gains momentum, linking to a story on a Fox News report suggesting COVID-19 leaked from a lab in Wuhan. Fauci's response? Blacked out.
Did you agree at that time in April of 2020 that the lab leak theory was a conspiracy theory?
No, not necessarily at all. The situation is that we didn't know, and we still don't know what the origin is.
Fauci, the nation's top infectious diseases doctor, now under fire from conservatives on cable.
We have thousands of emails to and from Anthony Fauci.
And in Congress, who suggest he didn't do enough to investigate where the virus originated.
We need to get to the bottom of this. Dr. Fauci needs to be brought in under oath to answer questions about this.
But Fauci points out the NIH is not responsible for such an investigation. Other emails show Fauci pushing back on suggestions he was silenced by the Trump White House. Responding to a prominent epidemiologist last year, I genuflect to no one but science and always speak my mind when it comes to public health, adding, I have consistently corrected misstatements by others and will continue to do so. During the pandemic, remember, Fauci came under fire from some of the former president's supporters for his backing of certain pandemic precautions. And when a Chinese scientist emailed him to check in about Fauci, quote, being attacked, the doctor responded, all is well, despite some crazy people in this world.
Long-term COVID leaving one New Jersey woman with a 6-figure medical bill, and she's not the only one. More than a year after contracting COVID-19, many people are still sick and can't pay for their health care. NBC News Now correspondent Isa Gutierrez shows us what they're going through.
1 year after contracting COVID-19, Andrea Cerisa was faced with something she never imagined: prolonged symptoms and a stack of medical bills.
I've seen so many specialists. I've seen multiple of each of those specialists. A lot of them are out of pocket. A lot of them are out of state. I don't have coverage for out of state.
Her COVID long hauler symptoms run the gamut: gastrointestinal problems, brain fog, dizziness, and severe exhaustion, just to name a few. In November 2020, Andrea collapsed at her home in New Jersey. After consulting with doctors, she decided to seek help at a New York City hospital's post-COVID center, specializing in care for COVID long haulers. But it was out of state, where she knew her insurance benefits would not apply.
I knew that that was my only hope to get help. I had to make the decision to either live or die. I had to make that decision, and so it really wasn't a choice for me.
Afterwards, she says she was billed around $123,000 and showed us her explanation of benefits. She told us much of the last few months has been spent on the phone, trying to see if her insurance could make an exception and help cover the cost.
Now it's, okay, what am I going to do about all these bills? And I do. I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm scared.
It's a post-COVID life she never envisioned. A year ago, she was healthy and newly engaged, a dental office manager by day and a singer by night.
I think I'm the person that you would never expect to be in this position. Here I was a year ago, living such an amazing life, but here I am. I can't get out of bed most days.
Andrea is not alone. Amy Watson has struggled with similar symptoms for over a year after contracting COVID in March 2020, and she's created one of the largest Facebook groups acting as a support network for other long haulers, hearing stories of many struggling to pay off COVID-19 medical costs.
The vast majority of us have not been able to work or have had to have reduced workloads or working from home, trying to recover and stay afloat at the same time.
Hannah Lockman is one of them. She's been to the ER a staggering 18 times after struggling with painful post-COVID symptoms. Last year, owing thousands, even with insurance.
If I try to think about how much it is, I'm not going to be able to handle it.
What's more, she and her husband had to survive on her income alone for a few months after his restaurant job was cut due to the pandemic. We reached out to Hannah's insurance provider from last year. They told us that in 2020, they, quote, waived all member cost sharing and copay for COVID-19. But in Hannah's case, her employer's self-insured plan meant she was responsible for her deductible and coinsurance. While the pandemic medical debt toll nationwide is still unclear, 2020 saw a spike, likely caused by the compounding health and economic crises. Credit Karma reported that medical debt among its members increased by $2.8 billion from the end of May 2020 to the end of March of this year. Another survey by the finance company Access One found that 37% of respondents were concerned they would be unable to pay for medical care in 2021. Economist Matthew Eisenberg says the millions of workers who lost their employee-sponsored health coverage is one factor likely contributing to the spike.
The best comparison here would be the Great Recession back in 2008, right, where we had this huge unemployment crisis. A lot of people lost their jobs and were unable to weather financial shocks. Now, what makes this different is we had a massive economic crisis at the same time as a massive public health crisis.
And while coronavirus testing and vaccines have been made available for free, COVID treatment is much more complicated. At the beginning of the pandemic, some health insurers voluntarily waived costs related to COVID-19 treatment. Since then, though, they've quietly let those waivers expire. On Capitol Hill, Democratic Senators Chris Van Hollen, Jeff Merkley, and Sherrod Brown introduced a bill that would, in essence, suspend debt accrued during the public health emergency. But that bill has been stagnant in the Senate since it was introduced. Democratic Congresswoman Katie Porter has also introduced legislation easing the impact of medical debt on people's credit.
It doesn't seem fair that that would play such a large factor in determining people's creditworthiness, which can have downstream impacts and people's ability to open credit cards, finance a car, buy a house, et cetera, et cetera.
Andrea's health has completely upended her life, leading to moments like these where her brain fog is overpowering.
My fog is happening. I'm sorry.
Okay. Moments that are still difficult to process.
My brain, that is just so frustrating to me. That's so frustrating to me. I don't mean to be getting upset. I'm sorry. That to me is just devastating. It's devastating.
Andrea's story, however, may be finally taking a turn for the better. After sitting down with Andrea, we reached out to her insurance company for comment on the six-figure number in her explanation of benefits. They declined to comment on her specific case, citing privacy reasons. After we reached out, Andrea was notified that her insurance would in fact cover most of the costs. As of mid-May, Andrea told us that six-figure charge has dropped, reduced to less than $1,000 deductible.
I didn't choose to get COVID, right? So whatever I have to do to get through this, I'm going to do to get through this.
It is time for the bottom line, our daily look at what's going on in the business world and beyond. The market's flirting with new records, but not quite getting there today. The Dow put on 179 points to finish the week at 34,756. I'm getting excited and ahead of myself. Investopedia editor-in-chief Caleb Silver here now with his Friday roundup. Caleb, the markets just feel real comfortable near those record highs, and so do I. I'm boosting them 100 points, or 1,000 points, I should say. We've got meme stock mania helping them out. So what do we need to know about stocks this week? What's driving all this?
Good to be with you as always, Allison, and rally on as far as equity investors are concerned, because there's really no other place to get return but the stock market right now. What we're actually seeing is a lot of enthusiasm for the recovery related sectors, a lot of enthusiasm for financials, and just a lot of enthusiasm for those mania meme stonks, as we call them, as we saw stocks like AMC Entertainment going up 98% just this week. We saw GameStop up another 15 or so percent. We saw BlackBerry up 50%. Allison, when's the last time you saw a BlackBerry device in the wild? That stock's going crazy. But you have this you have this mania around these stocks that are highly traded, hotly shorted by big Wall Street institutions and day traders. And we know there are millions more this year in the market, keep pushing these stocks higher and higher. And what are they doing? They're issuing more shares to the public because they think there's an insatiable appetite. Well, you see, when companies like that have these huge stock surges, they issue more shares, the stock usually goes down, but it's been wildly volatile in the stock market. And part of that reason is Tina. There is no alternative. I don't mean Tina Turner, and you better be good to me, but there is no alternative for big investors when interest rates are this low.
But hey, it kind of is Tina Turner, right? Because the market is being good to them. And Caleb, speaking of Blackberries, my goodness, I did some cleaning a couple of months ago and found my hot pink Blackberry from back in the day. It broke my heart to throw that thing out. I had trouble parting with it. I'm like President Obama. I don't want to let my Blackberry go. All right, we got to talk jobs because we got the all-important May jobs report this morning. 559,000 new jobs in May. I mean, look, it's pretty good, but it didn't exactly blow expectations out of the water. So what's your read on our jobs recovery? Where are the jobs and where are we still seeing some problems?
Sure. This is kind of like Goldilocks, not too warm, not too cold. This was less than expectations. The unemployment rate falling to 5.8% is very good. But if you look inside the numbers of the May non-farm payrolls report, as the Bureau of Labor Statistics calls it, you're looking at an unemployment rate that is uneven across race, with black unemployment at 9.1%, Hispanic unemployment close to 8%, white unemployment down at 5%. The labor force participation rate, this is something we keep close track of. This shows you how many potential working Americans are actually working. It is trapped in this range between about 60% and 62%. It's been there for months, which shows that there are a lot of Americans still sitting on the sidelines that could be working that aren't, and that's a big deal. In terms of long-term unemployed, the number keeps coming down. It was down 431,000 last month, but there's still 3.8 million people, Allison, that have been out of work for 27 weeks or more. It's very hard to get back into the workforce when you're out that long, and it's, as we can see in the labor force right now, there's this push-pull supply-demand imbalance when companies say they can't get enough workers for the jobs that they have.
So, Caleb, this brings us to our term of the week, JOLT. I know what it is, but would you share it with our viewers, please?
Yeah, JOLTS is really a measure of the labor turnover rate. This is the amount of turnover of jobs, and it measures job openings and vacancies across U.S. businesses. We're going to get that next week. We get it every week, but we get it once a month. It shows us how many vacancies there are compared to the openings and the amount of available workers. It should jolt the labor market back into force, because right now, as we know, there's this huge imbalance. And I was just anecdotally out in New Mexico where restaurants are closing early, keeping their phones off the hook, and not able to do the amount of business they want to do because they can't find enough qualified workers. And folks who aren't going to earn more than they're making in unemployment are not that ready to get out of the house and join the labor force if they're not going to earn that much. Now, wages are going up slightly for the first time in 15 years, but it's still not enough compared to the unemployment checks that folks are still getting because of that pandemic unemployment insurance and whatever they're getting from their states.
Yeah, Caleb, you're seeing that anecdotally on Long Island as well. A lot of the summer restaurants had to wait to open until the kids are out of college, done with high school, because they just don't have people to work. And there's demand, right? People are itching to go back out to restaurants to eat, and they're just having trouble finding people to work those jobs. So what else are you watching for next week?
Well, next week we do have the G7 summit. This is the G7 nations that are gathering together in London. They already started meeting, but key two things are on the list: vaccine distribution to poorer countries because they want to eradicate COVID as fast as possible in and around other countries to stop the spread globally, but also the global tax. And we talked about Guilty several weeks ago on the show. Again, not the Barry Manilow, not the Barry Gibb, Barbara Streisand song, but this global tax. I won't sing this time. Please don't. Wait till after the show. But the global tax that the Biden administration would like to see up around 21%, they dialed it back to about 15%. It looks like the G7 finance ministers may be on board with a 15% global tax, which would take more money out of giants like Facebook and Apple that do offshore in other countries that have lower tax rates. We could see a compromise on that, which could be a very big deal for the Biden administration. We're watching out for that, and we're watching out for reports on inflation and consumer sentiment. Are consumers still feeling strong enough to spend? And is that trend going to carry us through the summer? We'll see, because that's key to the entire U.S. economic recovery.
Mm-hmm. Caleb, before you go, I just have to ask, where did you get that good-looking sweatshirt hanging up in the background? I have one just like it.
That is the Investopedia Express limited edition Buttersoft podcast sweatshirt that only very special people get. So you have one, I have one, and one day we're going to rock those together. But thank you for pointing out the swag, and thanks for wearing it and being a listener.
Hey, thanks for sending it over. I can't wait for Sweatshirt Friday. We'll see you soon.
See you soon.
Cryptocurrency, not just an investing roller coaster, but now a job creator, too. Cryptocurrency job searches up almost 200% over the last year, according to Indeed.com. And there are plenty of openings, available jobs up 30% as well. Let's bring in CNBC correspondent Kate Rogers. So, Kate, let's just cut to the chase. Who's hiring? Where are the jobs?
Hey there. Yeah, well, there's been a ton of interest from the retail trading side in getting into cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. So a lot of these crypto exchange platforms are hiring. The good news is that many of these roles are remote, and they're all over not only the U.S., but the globe. So the top jobs right now that are in demand would be, of course, for software engineers, people who are working on security and on the platform design itself. But there's also some opportunities out there for people who work in client services, customer services, working with actual customers who are putting their money into things like Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies and making sure that they're happy using those platforms.
So, Kate, what kind of experience do you need to land a crypto job? I mean, do you need to have a strong background in finance or crypto, or can you figure your way in with some other skill sets?
Yeah, you can definitely figure your way in with those other skill sets, as mentioned. So we talked to both BlockFi and Kraken. Those are two different exchange platforms that are currently hiring, and they said that they're really welcoming people from all walks of life. Of course, there are opportunities for people with, financial services and fintech experience, but take a listen to BlockFi's co-founder saying that there's really opportunities out there for people with other skill sets as well.
We hired someone who used to be an assistant store manager at a pizza shop in Arizona. And what was incredible about the applicant is he was able to communicate that handling a hungry client is a lot like a client escalation, where the end experience is how do you turn this person's bad experience into something positive. But really looking for people who are passionate and talented and open-minded and willing to learn something new. and to find a role within our company where they can grow and we can teach them about crypto.
So you heard it here, from pizza to crypto. There's definitely applicable skill sets from all different types of industries into this new and growing sector.
Oh my God, it's so fascinating. All right, so I have to ask, because I'm a little bit of a crypto skeptic, and I'm not alone, right? A lot of people think that crypto is just the next bubble waiting to burst. Could crypto actually help bring our jobs market back, or is it too soon to tell if this is going to last long term?
I wouldn't put the full recovery of the economy on the back of the cryptocurrency sector. But when we talk to both of these companies that are hiring, between the two of them, 1,500 people or so, they said, listen, to any crypto skeptics, we would say, come and learn about our platforms, come and learn about cryptocurrencies, about Bitcoin, about what this all means. And you'll see the opportunity. Both had been working in this area for years. They're now fronting, really big and fast growing companies. So there's a lot of opportunity there. And like we said, there's opportunities for people with all different types of skill sets to come on, learn, and find a career and really grow. So when you ask the companies that are hiring, they'll tell you they're in it for the long run.
Every time I say, crypto, no, they prove me wrong. So maybe I'm wrong here again. And there's some job futures there. Kate, thanks so much for talking to us about all the openings they have there.
Thank you.
Take a job, learn another language. A restaurant in Philly offering English and Spanish classes, personal finance courses, even cryptocurrency bonuses to attract new hires. NBC News correspondent Maura Barrett caught up with the owner to see if his big bet is paying off.
It's always been challenging to get to 100% staffing in the restaurant business, but nothing like this. This is completely foreign to us.
Barry Gutin has a story familiar to other restaurant owners post-pandemic. Last year, he laid off more than 400 employees, his entire staff.
We don't know if the country's going to survive. We don't know if we're going to survive.
A year later, as capacity restrictions are lifting, he can't fully reopen yet because of the latest shared struggle, bringing those employees back. Turnover in this industry is normal, but there were nearly 1 million unfilled jobs posted in March, more than any time in the last 2 decades except January 2019, and about 20% more than pre-pandemic levels.
We've had to hire people at line level, and it's been very difficult. It's very difficult to get people in the kitchen and in the front of house and in hourly positions. So we've pulled out all the stops in trying to incentivize people to come get an application.
Cash bonuses for referrals? Sure. But bonuses via cryptocurrency, reimbursement for personal finance courses, plus English and Spanish lessons are also on the list.
These incentives are really unique. How did you even come up with these in the first place?
Well, we thought about what our employees need. Now, a lot of our employees are young. They're not thinking about the future yet. So we want to get them focused on putting some of this money away. We hope that as we make their lives better, it'll help with our retention.
It's Maggie Furton's second day as a service assistant at Cuba Libre in Philadelphia.
These are our empanadas.
She plans on taking advantage of the incentives now that she's hired.
It kind of seemed like, like what's the catch, kind of? But it's like, because of course, just Spanish lessons alone, it's like, if that's for free, why not just do it? Because, I mean, that's the life skill that you're never gonna, nobody can ever take that away from you.
We have a lot of recent immigrants, and we want to unlock their potential and advancement potential. And for our employees that don't speak Spanish, well, inherently, Cuba Libre is a bilingual concept. It's going to create a better cohesion, and it's going to help them in their life as they grow as well.
The language lessons, an especially novel perk, as the Hispanic unemployment rate sits at 7.3%, higher than the national rate at 5.8%. Business owners hoping these incentives are more enticing than the added federal unemployment benefits.
As it was really helpful when we all shut down and put everybody out of work, and this supported them, we think now it's a disincentive to coming back to work. And at least some people are staying out of work because they're being paid to do so.
But starting this month, 25 states are eliminating those programs, arguing the extra support isn't needed anymore. And once those formerly unemployed go looking for a job, employers like Barry are ready.
The reality of it is today that they can go out and get 10 jobs if they'd like because there's so many available.
They're debating our existence. The mother of a transgender teen talking about bills restricting trans kids' rights. The ACLU saying there are bills like that in over 30 states. MSNBC anchor Yasmin Vasugian spoke with one Texas family who says these laws are doing more harm than good.
When they're passing bills that is going to intentionally make life miserable for children and their families, they're not doing their jobs.
Amber and Adam Bregel are parents of Max and Lulu. Max is a 13-year-old transgender boy, but most of all, he's a kid.
What's the best thing about your mom?
That she's always here.
Here for you?
Yeah. And I can call her and then she'll come.
But here I am. And she's shown up a lot lately, testifying in front of the Texas state legislature during a hearing to debate a bill that would make providing gender-affirming health care child abuse a felony in the state of Texas.
They're debating our existence. Taking away the support that a child needs to thrive, that is the child abuse, plain and simple.
Amber says only 2 sponsors of the bill stayed in the room during her testimony. State Senator Dawn Buckingham, a co-sponsor, was not one of them.
This is about being sure that we're making the best decisions possible for our kids. You know, as a mom, if my kids said, I only want to eat ice cream every day all day, I wouldn't let them eat ice cream all day every day.
The principle they're operating on is that you do what's conducive to your child's health.
Yeah.
This is about saying, I need to just watch you emerge. And when it happens and that light turns on and you're happy and healthy, that's it.
Lawmakers in 31 states have proposed bills banning transgender children from playing sports. 8 states have passed them, and 35 bills in 20 states threaten transgender health care, with 1 now law.
We all imagine what we might be when we grow up.
One of the organizations advancing this agenda is the American Principles Project, which made anti-trans legislation a wedge issue in the 2020 election and spent $4 million in ads in key swing states. The president, Terry Schilling.
There was a transgender athlete that was called one of the bravest women in the world, bravest athletes in the world, and you were cited as saying that's not brave.
I don't think there's anything brave about a male identifying as a female and then competing in women's sports against them. I could claim to be a giraffe, but I'm not a giraffe. I'm a human being.
Stand up. Max practices with his boys' gymnastics club team 4 hours every single day. He and his family have also stepped into the spotlight of trans rights, protesting the advancement of these bills as direct attacks against who he is as a person and what makes him Max.
Your mom and dad protesting for you. What was that like for you?
Makes me feel loved and good.
He was known for taking on high-profile clients throughout his decades-long career, maybe best known as a member of O.J. Simpson's so-called Dream Team during the trial of the century. Defense lawyer F. Lee Bailey has died at the age of 87. NBC News Now host Joe Fryer looks back on the attention-grabbing attorney's life.
A tenacious defense attorney whose high-profile cases and theatrical persona made him as recognizable as his clients.
If he planted the glove, it's not a smear campaign, it's a defense.
F. Lee Bailey captured attention in and out of the courtroom, representing some of America's most infamous defendants.
This witness says at 10:15, this man's automobile, which is cast as an instrument of murder in this case.
The biggest case of his career, the defense of football star O.J. Simpson. Bailey, part of Simpson's Dream Team during the murder trial.
Has anyone, to your knowledge, seen that glove there before your arrival?
Not to my knowledge.
His cross-examination of former LAPD Detective Mark Furman, a pivotal moment many point to as a reason for Simpson's acquittal, one later immortalized in the award-winning series The People versus O.J. Simpson.
Detective, did you take a glove from the Bundy scene and then wipe it on the interior of the Bronco?
No.
On Thursday, Simpson paid tribute to his former attorney.
F. Lee Bailey was a great guy. He was the one lawyer that every morning came into this little lockup cell that they used to have me in before the trials to talk to me and tell me what to expect that day.
But Bailey didn't always find success in the courtroom. A jury famously failed to believe his argument that publishing heiress Patty Hearst had been brainwashed when she participated in armed robberies with a domestic terrorist group.
The head of the Symbionese Liberation Army told her, we're going to rob her bank. You're going to be up front. There'll be a number of guns behind you. One false step on your part, and we'll gun you down.
Bailey also took on the case of the alleged Boston strangler, Albert DeSalvo.
Albert knew what only someone on the scene at the time of the homicide could have known.
But the insanity defense for his client was rejected by jurors.
From our point of view, I think it was well worthwhile.
Throughout his career, Bailey faced legal troubles of his own and was eventually disbarred. An end to a storied legal career lived in the spotlight.
Coach K, a name synonymous with college basketball, confirming that he's calling it quits. Mike Krzyzewski handing off his clipboard at the end of next season, retiring as the legendary coach of the Duke Blue Devils after 42 seasons. On the Today Show this morning, Coach K talked about why he's leaving, his winning legacy, and making one last run at the NCAA championship.
It's like a 41-year love affair, and at the end of it, you're saying goodbye. And I was thinking, you know, how does it feel at the end of all of those years?
Well, the end is going to come next April, hopefully, because that's when the Final Four is on. But I wanted to make sure that we get a runway for the new coach. And today, my top assistant, John Shire, will be named the new coach once I step down at the end of this season. So this is an exciting day, too. And so I'm not thinking yet of retirement. I'm thinking of next year. And then I'll let my wife plan the retirement during the next 8 or 9 months.
Coach, of all the achievements, all the accolades on the court, no one's won more games. You've taken that squad of yours to 5 national championships. You've sent more players to the NBA than any other active college coach. What matters most to you of all of those accomplishments?
Well, I think the reason I got in it was relationships, to have an impact on the young men that you have the honor to coach. That's why I got into coaching. When I was 16, my coach had that impact on me and one of my teachers in high school. And I wanted to be a coach since I was 16 years old. And that was the reason. Now, the wins come as a result of having great relationships, not just with an individual player, but with a group of players, and having developed relationships among them. And then you play as one. And that's been my goal every year. Sometimes it's achieved at a high level. Sometimes it's not. You're never always successful, but I think that's always been the basis of how I coached, and the X's and O's will look a lot better if the X's and O's get along with one another.
I was thinking about it, 41 years as the head coach at Duke, but you're not the same man and you're not the same coach that you were when you started all those years ago, and it seems that's a hallmark of your tenure, that you did change, you have adapted, you have been flexible. How do you feel that you're different from when you began?
Oh, I know a lot more. I have better balance. I have 10 grandchildren now. That's a big thing. But the one constant, I'm always trying to learn, and I think I've listened better. I don't micromanage. I want people to follow their instincts and have the courage to do that, and know that you should be responsible about the environment that you're in, and you shouldn't necessarily just give orders. If you provide a very productive environment, talent and relationships and togetherness will take over. And I've seen that happen with my Duke teams. Obviously, I've seen it happen with my U.S. teams, and they make me look pretty smart sometimes.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.